Michael Pintard.
It's my understanding that there's a church service going on. And the pastor, being a man of God, is likely to ask folks in the sanctuary to raise holy hands. And the instant that he sees the prime minister about to raise his hand, he says, "Not you, sir, not you, not you, not you." It's the people's time. The leader of the Free National Movement, in his wisdom, thought that we needed to remind a number of people whose time it is. Because the truth is, many politicians have lost their way and seem not to understand it is not about them, it's not about us, it's about you. And so the leader thought that we needed a collective reminder of whose time it is. Because power has a way of causing you to forget your original mission for why you signed up to serve the Bahamian people. And so politicians sometimes forget, which is why it is possible for some to say that you can pray all you want, but when you are through, you still need to ask me for permission. Because sometimes you forget it's not about you, it's about the people. Sometimes the financial backers of political parties forget it's not about them. And so sometimes they criticize prime ministers about not honoring the secret deals they made in the past. And telling them, I've given you $5 million, it's time for you to pony up a little bit more than you did before. Because even investors, even backers could forget it's not about them, it's about you, it's about the people. That's why our leader wanted all of us to be reminded it is whose time? And sometimes even party officers may forget and assume that a change in government would automatically mean that their financial fortunes would change because despite their talent level, we're going to choose them because you're part of us, even though someone else who didn't support us may be more qualified. But I heard the leader make the point that this is a meritocracy. In other words, it is about merit. And so while we appreciate you, love you, and will make sure we work daily for you, it is also about making sure that people understand we are not like them. All of us are Bahamians. It's about you. It is the people's time.
Let's work hard, work hard, work hard, work hard.
And so I am grateful to the Free National Movement and especially the great people of Marco City and this hard-working team. Let me tell you a quick story. Immediately after the hurricane, this team traveled throughout the length and breadth of Grand Bahama, not just Marco City. And many of their families, much like mine, much like Burley's, who made sacrifices that I can spend a tremendous amount of time making a difference, and I appreciate you, and I thank you for that sacrifice. The part of community service, the part of us doing what we do, really taxes those that love us, that have sacrificed on our behalf, that stand with us when we go through the valley and the shadow of death. And so for all of the families, all of those who support these candidates, God bless you, and we love you and appreciate your sacrifice. But this team in Marco City traveled throughout Grand Bahama assisting persons. We never asked, what was your political persuasion before we rendered assistance? It was irrelevant.
Pintard them can't play like you.
And we didn't bother to preach the gospel according to the Free National Movement either. It was about seeking to affect lives that were badly affected by Hurricane Matthew, and some persons were suffering long before. The FNM is fundamentally different than those other guys. And so many of us were seeking to serve residents while a government was collecting on the low end $1.2 million, and then it continued to climb. And only because journalists began to reveal that the money was in the bank that they finally admitted and began spending, and some of it had already left Grand Bahama for New Providence. And so here's what a lady pointed out to us as we moved through the community. Imagine your light and water having been off for 2 and 3 years. Imagine that you're living in a developed community, and not just you, but other neighbors have no functioning bathroom. Imagine persons are living in vehicles and in abandoned buildings, and in Grand Bahama, there are many such buildings. And so we should really be about the business of how could we form partnerships, how could we, in this time, turn to each other instead of on each other and try to change these lives. I said the FNM is fundamentally different than the PLP. One example is, imagine 2 ministers traveling from Freeport to New Providence, or going to Ket Island, or Eleuthera, and telling the rest of the Bahamas that the Grand Bahama economy has recovered, knowing full well that even some who traveled to the convention were themselves unemployed and hurting. We are fundamentally different than them. We'll not seek to tell the folks in Ket Island that Grand Bahama is doing well when it's not. And we know what that game is about. The game is about to tell the folks who are being neglected in Ket Island that the reason we haven't gotten to you yet is because we've taken care of Grand Bahama, but the rest of us in Grand Bahama know, lie them or tell.
Fire them, throw them out.
And so they characterize the leadership of the Free National Movement as being weak. So one would have to assume that the alternative must be strong. Let's examine for a moment this great strength. Is this great strength such that they could simply sign a check so that the many persons living in Centerville who are living with outside toilets in dilapidated houses, if he was so strong, he would be able to muster the strength to sign some checks to make sure their lives are fundamentally and irreversibly changed? Oh, let's examine for a moment how strong he is. He's so strong that he has the ability to take a junior staff member and elevate them in Grand Bahama beyond even the minister of Grand Bahama. He's so strong that he is unable to push back the cronyism and nepotism, where in the midst of suffering on this island, they are still trying to determine your politics if you are to receive a voucher. NEMA in Grand Bahama has been gutted. All financial transactions related to hurricane goes through the political wing of the Progressive Liberal Party called Urban Renewal. And so, if our Prime Minister was strong, he ought to have been strong in character, to appreciate that we are all God's people. That the lady in Mayfield Park whose roof is leaking, whose children are not around, whose husband has passed, she has as much right to the bounty of this land as anyone else, notwithstanding the fact that she has never supported the PLP. If we are committed to changing this island, FNM's Bahamians, then we have to make the point to the Progressive Liberal Party that PLPs, we absolutely love you. But we, like you, recognize that the present leadership that you have is unsuitable if this country is to grow. If we are to stop the consistent downgrades, then PLPs, you have to change your leadership. Join us. If we are to stop the carnage on the street, PLPs, FNMs, and others, it's time to relieve the PLP of their job. Before I leave, let me just say very quickly, the carnage we see on our streets, a lot of it we can directly lay at the feet of the Progressive Liberal Party. Every gangster I have ever talked to, privately or publicly, seemed to be employed by the Progressive Liberal Party and the government of the Bahamas. And I told you we are different than them. When we talk to them, we talk about transformation. How can you transition out of the life that you're in to the life that would make you and your family proud? When Daddy DPM talk about them, it's about them maintaining the position. When the Deputy Prime Minister talked to gangsters, when Keith Bell talked to gangsters, when Jerome Fitzgerald talked to gangsters, it is about them maintaining the position of influence they have on the street in order to collect as much voters' card as possible to continue to sustain them in power. If you want to see the carnage stop on the street, then let's get some leaders who at least have the moral authority to talk to these young men that their lives can be different and they could be better. And so, as I leave, I want to say to all the residents of Marco City, as you know, we have been having a number of town meetings. We don't talk about mortgage relief. We do what we have been doing before. We hired Kwesi Thompson and sued the mortgage corporation to stop people from being evicted. Now, that's not people. We weren't fighting for people who had 2 number houses, account and managing 5 relationships simultaneously. This was for people who had legitimate problems, catastrophic events that accounted for why they were in the state. So we don't talk this thing. When the hurricane came, we went out and worked. Imagine this. The government has borrowed $250 million for Joaquin and for Matthew. Why are there still so many people hurting in Grand Bahama as a result of Matthew?
Fire them, throw them out.
I leave you with this. As you know, the government has accused several of us in here, me chiefly, as collaborating with others in order to topple them. That was the phrase that they used. I just want to close on that point. The accusation was the Free National Movement in general, Michael Pintard and others, are seeking to topple us. I just want to demonstrate to you tonight that I am absolutely unrepentant in that regard. The Progressive Liberal Party needs to be toppled. But we won't do it with force. We're going to do it because you're going to work harder than you've ever worked when you leave here tonight. You're going to call friends and relatives. And you're going to tell them it's time to register and vote the PLP out. Yes, we need to topple them. You're going to reach out to FNMs who are disaffected, who haven't worked for the party for a while, because they sometimes recognize that in the heat of the fight, we're all together, but in their lowest moments, every now and again, they're all alone. You're going to reach out to them and bring them back. You're going to reach out to PLPs, and you're not going to judge them because they're wearing a different color. Many of them love this country just like us. They just simply made the wrong choice in political organizations, so we're going to ask them to join us as we do what? Topple the PLP. And so FNMs, I ask you, whose time is it? Whose time is it?
Election day.
God bless you.
Election day.